My stepdad wants to steal my family's business, but I had a plan to prevent him. My name's Julian, and this is the story of how my stepdad Troy, the smug, handshaking fraud with a jawline from a cologne ad, tried to erase my father's legacy and booted me out of the company my dad built from scratch. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well for him. My dad, Robert, was old school to the bone. The kind of man who believed a properly balanced spreadsheet could solve world peace. He built our manufacturing company from the ground up over 30 years, and I grew up in his shadow. Half my childhood spent triple-checking numbers while other kids were playing video games. He died 6 years ago, right at his desk. Coffee still warm. Honestly, I think that's exactly how he would have wanted to go. After Dad passed, Mom didn't do well. She fell into a black hole of grief. So when Troy sauntered into our lives looking like a motivational speaker and talking like he'd cured cancer with synergy and positive thinking, she latched on. Within a year, they were married. Within 18 months, he'd somehow charmed the board into giving him the CEO title. Fresh leadership, he called it. New vision. I didn't raise a fuss. I stayed in my lane, managing operations and protecting the core of the company, our standards, our people, our integrity. At first, it seemed fine. Profits were up. Stockholders were smiling. But then, weird stuff started happening. Our best employees were retiring early, or were they pushed? Longtime supplier deals were replaced with third-party names I couldn't even find online. Troy just kept saying we were streamlining. But here's the thing, I'm not just a legacy kid. I've lived in this business my whole life. So when a quarterly report showed a $247,800 discrepancy, I knew something stunk. I stayed up late staring at that number in Dad's old office, my office now, until my eyes burned. And eventually, that single line item led me to a non-existent invoice, which led to a shell company, which, surprise, surprise, didn't exist. I looped in Claire, my sister and head of legal, because she's the type who smells blood in contracts. She didn't even finish her latte before saying, "These are rigged. He's burying something." Meanwhile, Troy kept making these condescending jabs. "Julian, this isn't your dad's garage workshop anymore. This is a real company." "Real company, huh? With fake suppliers and disappearing money?" Everything snapped one day when I was going through Q3 reports with Lucas, my old college buddy and one of the most loyal employees we've got. Troy kicked the door in like some bad action movie villain. "What are you doing with those files?" he barked, already turning that lovely shade of tomato red. "Reviewing the reports," I said calmly. "There are inconsistencies." That triggered him. "Oh, it triggered him. You're incompetent. Just like your deadbeat father. I'm recommending your immediate termination at the next board meeting." Lucas was frozen. I could almost hear the WTF echoing in his brain. I didn't rise to it. Didn't flinch. I just turned the screen and showed him what I'd found, where the $250,000 had gone, and that it was only the beginning. Then I said the one thing that would haunt him until this all came crashing down. "This is just the tip of the iceberg. And let me tell you, when the iceberg shows up, some Titanic-level sinking is coming. You ever get that feeling when someone messes with you and you just smile because you know something they don't? That was me the next morning. After Troy's little meltdown and spontaneous firing, I didn't sleep much, but not because I was stressed. No, I was planning. First thing I did? Message Claire. "It's time." Her response came in under a minute, already pulling the contracts. That's the thing about growing up in a family-run business, you learn to keep receipts. Digital and otherwise. I also pinged Lucas, still got access to the archive servers? He replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. That man doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's usually important. Meanwhile, I got a call from Mom. "Of course. Julian, please." Troy's upset. He says you've been digging through his files, undermining him, making accusations. Can't you just let him do his job without interference? Let me tell you something. Hearing your mom beg you to just get along with the man actively trying to erase everything your father built is an Olympic-level emotional punch. I wanted to tell her everything right then. About the missing funds. The dummy corporations. The shell games. But I could hear Troy in the background. It wasn't the time. "It'll be okay, Mom," I told her. "Everything's going to work out. Just trust me." I hung up and immediately sent Claire a message, "Initiate Plan B." Because you better believe we had a Plan B. And C. And D. You don't grow up learning business from a man like Robert Callahan and not know how to prep for corporate war. C. Claire had already started digging into the newer vendor contracts. She found layers of obfuscation so thick it looked like someone tried to bury a body in legal jargon. Names of fake firms with offshore accounts linked through vague LLC filings in states notorious for financial smoke and mirrors. Every signature? Either Troy's or a proxy who just so happened to be his financial advisor. Sure, buddy. Lucas, on the other hand, was in the data mines. He pulled archived email threads, document metadata, server activity logs, stuff that even IT forgot existed. One thread in particular caught our attention, a forwarded message from a now-retired procurement manager flagging a transaction that looked wrong. Guess who shut it down? Troy. Over the next week, we kept our heads down and our mouths shut. Troy strutted around the office like a peacock in a boardroom, oblivious. He even started calling himself the Rainmaker in meetings. I wish I was joking. Then, the best gift of all, Aubrey from HR, new character, total wildcard, slid into our plan completely by accident. She overheard Troy on a call in his office talking about moving things offshore before the audit. She pinged me on Slack with a single sentence, "You're gonna wanna hear this." I met her after hours in the break room. She handed me a flash drive and said, "Make sure this doesn't disappear. Aubrey, if you're out there, you're a legend." What was on the drive? Audio recordings, document scans, internal memos labeled confidential in bold red. One even referenced a consulting firm connected to 2 other companies Troy had previously restructured, which is rich because those companies don't exist anymore. But their bankruptcy filings? Oh, they exist. And guess who signed off on those exits? By Friday, Claire and I had enough evidence to blow this entire operation sky high. But we weren't done yet. We needed one more piece, Mom. Claire sat me down and said if she doesn't believe us, this whole thing could fall apart. You need her on our side. If there's one thing harder than exposing a corporate fraud, it's convincing your mother that her charming husband is the con artist behind it all. So, after Claire and I built our mountain of evidence, I knew the next step wasn't a lawyer or the board, it was Mom. Problem is, love makes people blind, and Troy had wrapped her around his greasy little finger with sweet talk and fake dreams. I invited her to breakfast at this old diner Dad used to love, figured a bit of nostalgia might help clear the fog. She showed up looking tired, like the weight of pretending everything was fine was finally getting to her. "Julian," she sighed before I could even say hello, "if you just apologize to Troy, he might let you come back. He says you're making this harder than it needs to be." Oh, Troy would let me come back, huh? How generous of the man stealing our family legacy. I didn't argue. Instead, I slid my phone across the table. On the screen? A picture of Troy, except it wasn't recent. It was from 15 years ago at another woman's wedding. His third wife. Owner of a publishing house that no longer exists. Mom stared at it like she was trying to blink reality away. "This could be fake," she whispered, but her voice was shaky. Doubt was creeping in. "There's more," I said, pulling out a USB drive. "Everything you need to see is on here. Just don't let him catch you looking at it." She didn't say much after that, but when she took the drive, I knew there was a crack in Troy's armor now, and that was all we needed. Back at the office, Troy must have sensed the shift because he started acting twitchy. Random closed-door meetings, shredding documents like he was training for a speed run, and pulling employees aside for friendly chats. Lucas texted me, he's panicking. Good. Claire had already moved copies of every critical file to secured servers. If he tries to wipe anything, we'll know, she assured me. We were 3 steps ahead at this point. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for, the public meltdown. Thursday afternoon, I'm in a meeting with Mr. Chin, one of our biggest clients and a man who respected my father like family. Troy bursts in, red-faced and fuming. "What did you tell them?" he barks in front of everyone. I stayed seated, calm as ever. "I'm in a meeting, Troy. We can talk later." "Like hell we will. You've been spreading lies, sabotaging me." Before I could respond, Mr. Chin stood up, cool as ice. "Maybe we should discuss those unusual charges on my recent invoices." If Troy could have evaporated on the spot, he would have. He went pale, stammered something about clerical errors, but the damage was done. 2 hours later, I was officially fired again, but this time, Troy made sure to do it in front of half the company, ranting about how I was too stupid to understand modern business. I didn't argue. I just said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're right, Troy. I'm not running this company, but neither are you." He froze. I told him to check his email. The board was calling an emergency meeting. As he bolted for the elevator, probably to see what he could still delete, I got 3 messages back to back. One from Mom saying, "We need to talk," one from Lucas confirming the board was on board, pun intended, and one from Claire, "All assets secured." He's got nothing. Troy thought he was about to win. Poor guy didn't realize he'd already lost. Update. So, remember how I said Troy had already lost? Yeah. He just didn't know how deep the hole was yet. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp, but I rolled in at 6:30. Not because I needed more prep time, we'd had this plan locked down for weeks. No, I just wanted one last quiet walk through the company. Through my father's company. The factory floor was quiet, machinery powered down, lights dim. It still smelled like steel and oil, exactly how Dad used to describe it. "Money smells like hard work," he used to say. "And hard work smells like this." My phone buzzed. "Claire, Mom's bringing the original docs. See you soon." Let me tell you something, nothing in this entire unraveling saga hit me like that text. Because I didn't know Mom had been digging through Dad's old records the night before. And what she found? Let's just say it wasn't a happy accident. Turns out Dad knew. He knew exactly what kind of vulture Troy was even before they met face to face. There were notes from private investigators. Copies of early takeover attempts. Troy had been circling our company like a shark in a tank for nearly a decade before he landed the gig as loving husband. Why didn't Dad stop him? He died too soon. But he left us the blueprint. Board members started showing up around 8:30. Some came in whispering, others looking nervous. Troy showed up last, right at 8:57, still pretending to be calm, still wearing that same smug face he wore at the wedding. The meeting started on the dot. Troy opened with some speech about healing the company and fostering unity, but the chairwoman shut him down with a single sentence. "We have some documents that demand immediate review." Her assistant passed out thick folders. I watched Troy's face as he opened his eyes scanning, then blinking, then darting around the room like a trapped animal. "These outline a pattern of financial misconduct," the chairwoman continued. "They come from both current and past sources, including your previous ventures." Troy tried to laugh it off. "This is absurd. Julian's clearly behind this. He's just bitter about being fired." That's when Mom walked in. She looked different. Steady. She was carrying Dad's old briefcase, black leather, worn around the edges, filled with a decade's worth of corporate war plans. "I think," she said calmly, placing a stack of files on the table, "you should see these too." Her voice didn't shake. Not once. "These are my late husband's personal records," she said. "Notes. Investigations. Evidence. Dated years before I ever met you." Troy stood up fast, too fast, but Lucas was already behind him, hand on the chair. "Sit down," he said. Quiet. Cold. And that was when the real show began. Claire led with the fake contracts. Lucas presented the hidden transfers and ghost projects. Aubrey from HR, Hero, provided employee testimony about intimidation and hush payments. Every name, every shell company, every shady transaction, it was all there. And then came the final piece. I stood. First time I'd spoken all morning. "Everything you've done, we can trace it. Every penny. Every lie. And the company's critical assets? They've been safe this entire time. Transferred legally. With board approval. 3 months ago." Troy looked stunned. "You can't do that." "The board already did," Claire cut in. "You were too busy laundering money to notice. The vote to remove him wasn't just unanimous. It was celebrated. The board chair didn't even bother with formalities. She looked straight at security and said, 'Escort him out.' As they led him away, Troy shouted, 'You're making a huge mistake. I'll bury you all.' Dramatic, sure, but empty. Because the second those elevator doors closed, my phone buzzed with 3 more messages. "Claire, SEC is ready. They have everything. Lucas, client contracts preserved. 0 fallout. Mom, there's more. We need to talk tonight." Troy thought he'd play chess with people born into the game. Checkmate. You'd think watching Troy get dragged out of the boardroom would be the highlight of the saga, right? Oh no, that was just the appetizer. The real feast was what came next. After Troy's dramatic exit, complete with threats straight out of a bad crime movie, I barely had time to enjoy the silence before Claire cornered me with her phone in hand. "Julian, you need to see this," she said, scrolling through a flood of emails and messages. Turns out word travels fast when a corporate parasite gets exposed. Former employees, old partners, even people we didn't know were reaching out. And they all had one thing in common: Troy had burned them too. Meanwhile, Mom invited me over for dinner. I figured it was going to be one of those "let's process what just happened" meals. Nope. She greeted me at the door holding Dad's old leather journal. "There's something else," she said, leading me to the dining table like we were about to summon ghosts. Page 47, I'll never forget it. It wasn't just notes about Troy's scams. It was a list of names. Dozens of them. People from other companies Troy had destroyed over the years. "Your father wasn't just protecting us," Mom explained. "He was building a case bigger than our family business." That's when it hit me. This wasn't personal revenge anymore. This was legacy work. By the next morning, Claire's phone was blowing up nonstop. Lucas had to set up a separate server just to organize the flood of evidence pouring in. Aubrey? She basically became our unofficial PR manager, filtering through statements from people eager to finally see Troy face justice. But the real game changer? Mom found a hidden USB drive in Dad's old tackle box at the lake house. Classic Dad move, a hide the smoking gun where no corporate snake would think to look. On that drive? Everything. Dad had been working with federal investigators. RICO case level stuff. All he needed was Troy to slip up and provide that final piece of evidence. And oh boy, did Troy deliver. Within days of being ousted, Troy started moving money like his life depended on it, which, to be fair, it probably did. Big transfers. Offshore accounts. The usual playbook for a man whose empire is built on sand. Lucas was watching it all in real time. He's panicking. Using every channel we flagged months ago. Perfect, I said, because I knew the feds were already in position, just waiting for Troy to hang himself with his greed. Then came the moment we were waiting for. Madison burst into my office, grinning ear to ear. Turn on the news. Headline, multi-state financial fraud ring exposed. There he was. Troy's face plastered across every major network. His perp walk was glorious, still in his overpriced suit, but this time accessorized with shiny new handcuffs. And here's the kicker, we didn't just take him down. We flipped the script entirely. Remember that holding company we used to secure our assets? Yeah, we turned it into a recovery fund. Claire and a team of lawyers started helping Troy's past victims reclaim what was stolen from them. The publishing house in Maine? Reopening. The restaurant chain in Florida? Back in the original family's hands. That factory in Ohio? Workers getting their pensions restored. Mom even launched a support group for people manipulated by predators like Troy. She calls it Rebuild because, of course, she does. As for me, I finally felt like we weren't just cleaning up a mess, we were finishing what Dad started. And just when I thought it was over, I got a message from an unknown number. This isn't over, boy. You have no idea what you've started. I smiled, leaned back in my chair, and thought to myself, buddy, you have no idea how ready we are? You know, there's a special kind of satisfaction when karma doesn't just knock, it kicks down the door in broad daylight. Watching Troy's perp walk should have been the end of it. But no, Troy wasn't smart enough to go quietly. A day after his face hit every news channel, I get another message from that unknown number. You think this is over? I've survived worse. Oh, Troy. Always the overconfident idiot. While he was busy trying to act like some untouchable mastermind from a bargain bin thriller, we were already 3 moves ahead. The feds had him locked in, but Claire, Lucas, and I? We were focused on the cleanup and turning this disaster into something worthwhile. First, Claire expanded the recovery fund. Calls kept coming in from people Troy had scammed over the years, small business owners, families, even former friends who'd been conned into investments. Each story worse than the last. Lucas, meanwhile, set up a task force, yeah, we felt fancy calling it that, to track down every loose end Troy left behind. Fake companies, hidden accounts, hush money trails, we followed it all. Then Mom, proving she's tougher than any of us gave her credit for, went public. She gave an interview about surviving financial abuse and manipulation, turning herself into the face of resilience. Overnight, Rebuild wasn't just a support group, it was a movement. And Troy? Well, he kept digging his grave. The more he tried to retaliate from behind bars through sketchy lawyers and desperate messages, the deeper the hole got. Every threat he sent was just more evidence. 1 week later, Madison stormed into my office again, this time waving a stack of papers like she'd won the lottery. He tried to move funds again through a new shell company, she said, practically laughing. The feds caught it in minutes. He's toast. By now, even Troy's fancy lawyers had abandoned ship. The case against him wasn't just solid, it was airtight. Fraud, embezzlement, racketeering, the list read like a criminal bingo card. But here's what really sealed it. Dad's hidden files included signed statements from past victims, some dating back over 2 decades. People who'd been too scared or ashamed to speak up until now. We connected them all. Built a case so massive the prosecutors didn't just want a conviction, they wanted to make Troy the poster boy for corporate fraud. As for me, I finally took a breath. Sitting in Dad's old office, my office now, I looked around at everything we'd saved. Not just the company, but the legacy. Then, as if on cue, another message buzzed through. You'll regret this. Classic Troy, all bark, no bite. I didn't even reply. I just forwarded it to the feds with a note, add this to the pile. At this point, Troy wasn't playing chess anymore. He was playing checkers with a blindfold on. Here we are, the grand finale. If you thought Troy's story would end with just a pair of handcuffs and a court date, oh no, my friend. The real revenge wasn't just in watching him fall. It was in everything that came after. A few days after Troy's last pathetic threat, I found myself at Dad's old lake house, the same place where he taught me how to fish, how to skip stones, and apparently how to prepare for multi-state corporate warfare. Mom showed up with one last surprise, a hidden compartment in Dad's tackle box. Classic Dad. Inside? A USB drive and a letter. Turns out Dad had been working with federal investigators long before his heart gave out. The drive contained everything they needed to nail Troy's entire network except for one final trigger. Which, of course, Troy so graciously provided when he tried to retaliate. By the time Troy's preliminary hearing rolled around, the case against him wasn't just strong, it was legendary. Financial fraud, racketeering, wire fraud, you name it, he did it. His lawyers tried to talk plea deals, but the feds weren't having it. They wanted to make an example out of him. But here's where it gets good. We didn't stop at taking Troy down. We built something better from the ashes. That holding company we used to protect our assets? It became a vehicle to help every family Troy ever scammed. Claire spearheaded legal efforts to restore stolen businesses. The publishing house in Maine? Reopened under its rightful owners. The restaurant chain in Florida? Back in family hands. The factory workers in Ohio? Pensions reinstated. Mom turned Rebuild into a national organization helping victims of corporate predators get back on their feet. She went from being Troy's last victim to becoming a beacon for people who thought they'd lost everything. And me? I kept running the company the right way. The way Dad taught us. No shortcuts. No schemes. Just honest work and protecting the people who built this place. A week ago, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. For a second, I thought, here we go again. But this one wasn't a threat. Thank you. My father lost everything to Troy years ago. He didn't live to see justice, but I know he's resting easier now. There were dozens more like it. Each message a reminder that this fight wasn't just about us, it was about everyone Troy had crushed under his greed. Now, as I sit here watching the sunset over the lake, I can finally breathe. Tomorrow, I'll head back to the office. But tonight, I'm just Robert Callahan's son, the guy who finished what his father started. Julian didn't just win. He turned a story of betrayal into one of redemption, legacy, and justice served cold. So tell me, what would you have done in his shoes? Would you have fought back, or walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I have a feeling this story's going to spark some debates. Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.